Samantha Blake had spent months dreaming about her ski trip to Colorado. After a brutal year working overtime as a nurse in a busy New York hospital, she craved an escape, somewhere cold, clean, and quiet. She booked a cozy cabin in the small town of Silver Ridge, nestled deep in the Rockies, and told herself she'd leave her worries at the foot of the mountain. When she arrived, everything looked like a postcard. Powdery snow dusted the tall pines, the cabins glowed warmly against the crisp white backdrop, and the air smelled of pine and fresh ice. Samantha felt lighter immediately, like she could finally breathe. On the first day, she joined a group lesson for intermediate skiers. Samantha wasn't an expert, but she could hold her own. By noon, she was confidently gliding down the beginner slopes, laughing as she stumbled and righted herself. She felt alive again. That night, she texted her sister, "This was the best idea ever. I feel like myself again." But everything started to unravel on day 3. The forecast warned of an incoming snowstorm, but the morning was deceptively clear. Bright blue skies stretched over the mountains, and the sun reflected off the snow so intensely that it hurt to squint. Samantha debated staying in, but her adventurous spirit won out. One last run, she thought. Then hot cocoa and a fire. She bundled up thermal leggings, heavy socks, insulated boots, gloves, and a thick down jacket, but she forgot one critical thing: hand warmers. She thought her gloves would be enough. They weren't. She took the lift up to a trail called Silver Run, a long, winding path through more isolated parts of the mountain. It was supposed to be easy, but halfway down, the wind picked up. Suddenly, the bright skies turned gray. Flakes of snow began to whip around her face like needles. Samantha pressed onward, trying to stay calm. She hadn't realized how fast the temperature was dropping. Her cheeks burned at first, then went numb. The same thing started happening to her fingers and toes. "I just have to get down," she whispered to herself. But visibility dropped to nearly zero. She could barely see 2 feet in front of her. Panic clawed at her chest as she realized she wasn't sure where the trail even was anymore. Every tree looked the same. A loud crack startled her. Was that a tree branch snapping under the weight of snow? Her skis caught on something hidden under the powder, and she tumbled hard down a small embankment. Pain shot up her right leg. She cried out instinctively, but the howling wind swallowed the sound. She tried to stand, but her ankle screamed in protest. Twisted, maybe even broken. She was alone, in a blizzard on the side of a mountain, with a possibly broken ankle and rapidly freezing extremities. Samantha blinked back tears. Crying would only make her goggles fog and freeze. "I have to stay awake. I have to stay calm," she reminded herself, struggling to remember the first aid training she'd gotten years ago. She needed to find shelter, or at least get out of the wind. She spotted a cluster of trees nearby that might offer some protection and, gritting her teeth against the pain, began to crawl toward them. Every movement was exhausting. Her hands felt clumsy, her fingers stiff. She pulled off one glove to adjust her scarf, and immediately regretted it. The cold was so severe it felt like fire at first. Then, nothing. She shoved her hand back into her glove, but the damage was already starting. Minutes felt like hours. Samantha made it to the trees and huddled at the base of a massive pine. She pulled her jacket tighter around her body and curled into a ball, trying to conserve heat. Then she realized her right boot felt wrong, like it was too loose. When she touched it, she couldn't feel anything through the thick material. Her toes were completely numb. A flicker of terror lit inside her. Frostbite. She knew the signs, and she knew she was running out of time. Samantha shivered violently under the giant pine tree, trying to rub her hands together for warmth. She had heard about the stages of hypothermia and frostbite in nursing school, but now the symptoms weren't just textbook terms. They were happening to her. She kept telling herself, "Stay awake, Sam. Don't fall asleep." Drowsiness was creeping over her in heavy waves. tempting her to just close her eyes for a few minutes. But somewhere deep inside, her survival instincts screamed, "If you fall asleep here, you might not wake up." With a trembling hand, Samantha fumbled for her phone. She prayed she would have a signal, even a single bar. Her frozen fingers barely responded as she swiped and tapped. No signal, not even a faint flicker of service. She wanted to scream, but she knew it would be useless, and it would waste energy she desperately needed to conserve. Her mind raced, trying to remember what she packed in her backpack. Half a granola bar, a small bottle of water, a thin emergency blanket she had grabbed at the last second and almost left behind. Thank God for that last-minute decision. Fighting her clumsy, slow-moving hands, she pulled the silver blanket from her backpack and wrapped it around herself. It crackled loudly in the howling wind, but it offered some protection. Still, Samantha could feel the deep cold seeping into her bones, layer by layer, like icy tendrils wrapping around her. Her thoughts became sluggish, images of her family floated through her mind. Her sister's wedding last summer, laughing with her best friend during late-night FaceTime calls, hugging her dad goodbye at the airport. "I can't die like this," she thought fiercely. "Not like this." In a moment of clarity, Samantha remembered her training again. If you're lost in a snowstorm and can't move, make yourself visible. Rescue teams would be out once the storm died down. She hoped. She needed to give them something to find. Gathering what little strength she had, she used her ski poles to stick her bright red backpack upright next to her. The contrast against the white snow might help rescuers spot her. The sun disappeared completely, swallowed by the storm. Darkness closed in fast. Hours, or what felt like hours, dragged by. Samantha drifted in and out of awareness, her mind fogging over. Her right foot was still numb, and now her fingers felt like someone had clamped them in a vice. She knew frostbite was setting in. First the numbness, then the color changes, white, blue, or black if it got bad enough. She was terrified to look. She tried to wiggle her toes inside her boot but felt nothing. Tears slipped down her cheeks, freezing into tiny icicles against her skin. "God, please," she whispered. "I don't want to lose my foot." Just when Samantha thought she couldn't hang on any longer, she heard it. A faint whirring sound cutting through the wind. A snowmobile. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Was she hallucinating? She fumbled with her remaining ski pole, trying to wave it above the snow, but her movements were weak and slow. The noise grew louder, then faded away. "No, no, no," she sobbed, but her voice was hoarse and broken. Moments later, a distant light flickered through the trees, a bright beam, slicing through the blizzard like a sword. "HOI, over here." Samantha tried to scream, but it came out as a croak. She weakly waved the pole again, the emergency blanket reflecting a little bit of light. The snowmobile veered toward her. A man in an orange parka jumped off, running toward her. "Oh my God!" she heard him shout. "Hang in there, you're gonna be okay." She wanted to say something back, but her body was shutting down. She barely registered strong arms lifting her, wrapping another thick blanket around her shivering frame. The man's voice, urgent and worried, crackled through a walkie-talkie. "Found her. Severe frostbite. Possible hypothermia. ETA 15 minutes to base." As they sped back toward civilization, Samantha's mind floated in and out of consciousness. The last thing she remembered before blacking out completely was the faint hum of the engine, and a silent promise she made to herself. Fight. Don't give up. When Samantha opened her eyes again, the world was a blur of fluorescent lights and soft voices. Everything felt distant, like she was underwater. It took several seconds to realize she was lying in a hospital bed. Warm air blasted gently across her face, and heated blankets covered her from chin to toe. She blinked up at the ceiling, struggling to remember where she was and how she had gotten there. Her whole body ached with a deep, throbbing cold. Hey, she's waking up." Someone said nearby, and a nurse with kind eyes appeared in Samantha's line of vision. "Hi, sweetheart," the woman said softly. "You're safe now. You're at Silver Ridge Medical Center. Just try to relax. Okay?" Panic flared briefly in Samantha's chest. She tried to sit up, but her body refused to cooperate. Her right foot felt strange, heavy, numb. My foot," she rasped. Her throat felt raw, like she had been screaming for hours. The nurse squeezed her hand gently. "We know, honey. You've got frostbite. Pretty bad on your toes. We're doing everything we can." Frostbite. The word hit her like a sledgehammer. Before she could ask more questions, a man in green scrubs entered the room. His ID badge read Dr. Henley, emergency medicine. He offered her a reassuring smile, but his eyes were serious. "Ms. Blake, I'm Dr. Henley. You're a lucky woman. You were found just in time. You have stage 3 frostbite on your right foot and some minor frostbite on your fingers." Samantha's mind raced. Stage 3. She knew enough to understand what that meant. Deep tissue damage. Blisters. Blackened skin. In worst cases, amputation. Tears filled her eyes, but she forced herself to listen. "We've already started treatment with warm water immersion to slowly bring your tissues back to temperature," Dr. Henley explained. "You're on 4 fluids and antibiotics to prevent infection. We'll monitor the damaged areas closely over the next few days. Sometimes, the tissue can recover better than we expect. And if it doesn't," Samantha whispered, her voice shaking. "Doctor." Henley's face softened. "Then we'll talk about surgical options. But for now, our focus is on saving as much as we can." It was a small comfort, but it was something. Over the next few hours, Samantha drifted in and out of sleep. Each time she woke, she became more aware of her surroundings. The steady beep of machines, the faint scent of antiseptic, the warm weight of blankets pressing against her, and the pain as her body warmed, the full extent of her injuries became clear. Her right foot burned with a deep, bone-deep ache that flared into stabbing pain whenever she shifted. Her fingers, though less severely damaged, throbbed fiercely. 2 nurses came and went, checking her vitals, adjusting her speaking to her in soothing tones. Someone brought her a small cup of iced chips for her dry mouth. Each tiny kindness felt enormous. By evening, Samantha was able to stay awake long enough to FaceTime her sister, Emily. The moment Emily's face appeared on the screen, tears streamed down Samantha's cheeks. "Oh, Sam," Emily said, covering her mouth with her hand. "We were so scared. Are you okay? What happened?" Samantha tried to explain between sobs, telling her about the storm, the wrong turn, the blinding cold, and the terrifying loneliness. Emily listened, nodding, tears running down her own face. "You're the strongest person I know," Emily said fiercely. "You're going to get through this. We're all coming out there. Okay? You're not alone." That word, alone, had haunted Samantha on the mountainside. Now, hearing Emily's promise, something inside her finally cracked open. For the first time since the nightmare began, Samantha truly let herself believe she was going to survive. Not without scars, not without pain, but she was alive, and she wasn't alone. The next few days at Silver Ridge Medical Center blurred into a haze of treatments, evaluations, and painful waiting. Samantha learned very quickly that frostbite recovery wasn't as simple as just warming up and getting back on your feet. It was a brutal, uncertain process filled with setbacks and small victories. Twice a day, nurses came to carefully assess her toes. They would gently peel back the layers of dressing, examine the color, check for new blisters, and rewrap everything with sterile, medicated gauze. The worst part was when they used a tiny pin to test for nerve response. Sometimes, Samantha could feel it. A sharp, tiny prick. Sometimes she couldn't. Those moments made her stomach drop. On day 3, Dr. Henley sat beside her bed with a grim expression. "We're making progress," he began. But I want to prepare you for the possibility that not all of the tissue is going to survive. Samantha nodded stiffly. She had already prepared herself. Still, hearing it out loud made her heart sink. How much do you think I'll lose? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated. It's too soon to say for certain. We're hopeful that at least part of your toes will recover. But we may have to remove the tips of a few toes. It all depends on how your body continues to heal over the next week. The words hit her harder than she expected. It wasn't just about losing parts of her body. It was about losing a part of her independence, her mobility, her life as she knew it. Would she be able to run again? Hike again? Would she even be able to wear normal shoes without pain? Samantha tried to stay positive. Everyone around her, Emily, the nurses, even Dr. Henley, kept telling her how lucky she was to be alive, how incredible it was that she survived it all, and she knew they were right. But at night, when the hospital grew quiet and dark, she let the fear creep in. She cried quietly into her pillow, mourning the life she had before the mountains swallowed her up. A week after her rescue, Samantha's family arrived. Seeing her mom, dad, and Emily walk into the room was like a jolt of life straight to her heart. Her mother rushed to her side, cradling Samantha's hand in both of hers, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. We're here, baby, her mom whispered. We're not going anywhere. Her father, a typically stoic man, sat silently by her bedside, gripping her other hand so tightly it almost hurt. And Emily, sweet, fierce Emily, pulled out her laptop immediately. Okay, she said. I've already found the best frostbite specialists back in New York. We're gonna get you into a rehab program. Physical therapy, hyperbaric oxygen treatment, the works. You're not doing this alone. For the first time in days, Samantha laughed. A wet, broken laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. How did you become the bossy one? She teased. Emily shrugged, grinning through her tears. Someone had to. Their presence gave Samantha new strength. It was one thing to fight for yourself. It was another to fight for the people who loved you. When Dr. Henley came back with updated imaging and blood flow tests, he delivered cautiously optimistic news. Good circulation is returning to the rest of your foot, he said. We'll still have to surgically remove the dead tissue on 2 of your toes, but the rest of your foot looks like it's going to make it. Samantha closed her eyes, overwhelmed by a tidal wave of relief and sorrow. She was going to lose parts of 2 toes, but she was going to keep her foot. She was going to walk again. It wouldn't be easy. There would be surgery, painful rehab, and probably months of recovery ahead. But there was a road forward, and for Samantha, that was everything. The day of surgery arrived faster than Samantha expected, even though Dr. Henley had explained everything in calm, clinical terms, how they would remove the dead tissue from 2 of her toes, how it would prevent dangerous infections. Samantha still lay awake the night before, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of it all. She wasn't just scared of the procedure. She was scared of what came afterward. What if she couldn't hike again? What if she couldn't go back to the career she loved as an outdoor guide and nature educator? What if people looked at her differently? Morning came with a rush of nerves and whispered reassurances from her family. Her mother kissed her forehead. Emily squeezed her hand 3 times, their secret code for "I love you." When Samantha woke up after surgery, her foot was heavily bandaged and her body felt numb with anesthesia. She braced herself before asking the question. How did it go? She croaked to the nurse standing nearby. The nurse smiled warmly. It went as well as it could. The surgeon said you were a model patient. They only had to take a small portion of your 2nd and 3rd toes. You still have good circulation and strong tissue in the rest of your foot. Tears of relief filled Samantha's eyes. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the life she had before, but it was still her life. Recovery was slow and brutal. The first time Samantha tried to stand, intense pain lanced up her leg. She cried out involuntarily, shocking herself with the rawness of it. The physical therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Marta, was firm but kind. It's going to hurt, Marta said, helping Samantha sit back down. Healing hurts, but every step you take is a step toward freedom. Samantha gritted her teeth and nodded. Quitting wasn't an option. Not after what she had already survived. Weeks turned into months. At first, she shuffled on crutches, her foot awkwardly braced. Then came the custom orthopedic shoes. Awkward, heavy, ugly, but they let her move. By spring, Samantha graduated from the crutches to a cane. She moved slowly, deliberately. Every step was an act of stubborn defiance against what had happened to her. She had therapy not just for her body, but for her mind too. The trauma of that night in the mountains lingered like a ghost. Nightmares haunted her, the howling wind, the blinding snow, the paralyzing fear that no one would ever find her. Sometimes she woke up drenched in sweat, gasping for air, certain she was still trapped under that pine tree. Her therapist, a gentle woman named Dr. Reyes, taught her how to reframe her fear. You weren't helpless, Dr. Reyes reminded her. You fought. You made yourself visible. You did everything right. You survived. And slowly, piece by piece, Samantha started to believe it. 1 year later, almost to the day, Samantha stood at the base of a new mountain trail, not to ski, but to hike. She wore specialized hiking boots, designed to support her healing foot. She still had a slight limp, and some days her toes ached terribly, especially in the cold, but she was here, alive, stronger than ever. As she started up the trail, Emily walked beside her, carrying extra gear in case Samantha needed it. The air was crisp, the pine trees towering high above them, the ground crunched underfoot. Samantha breathed in the fresh, cold air, and for the first time, the cold didn't feel terrifying. It felt like a victory. The first overlook, she paused, her chest swelling. With emotion, she turned to Emily, smiling through tears. I thought I lost everything that day, Samantha said quietly. But maybe I found something too. Emily tilted her head. What do you mean? Samantha gazed out at the endless expanse of trees, the blue mountains rising in the distance. I found out I'm stronger than I ever knew, she said. And no storm, no mistake, no scar is ever going to take that away from me. They stood together in the golden light of late afternoon, the sky stretching wide and limitless above them, and for the first time in a long, long time, Samantha felt not broken, but whole.